Hi everyone, my name is HudaQueen94. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm a huge New Orleans Saints fan, as well as being a huge fan of the NFL. And I feel like week 3 was a so much better week than opposed to week 2. You know, once again, the Miami Dolphins had the win of the week, and I really wish that I'd seen that game. Unfortunately, I didn't get an opportunity because I was subjected to probably watching another game that ended up being pretty boring. And that's kind of the thing, is that it seems like every single Sunday I only get like certain amount of teams. It's either like a Steelers game, a Chiefs game, a Bucks game, a Packers game, a Cowboys game, and it's like I feel like the least advertised games are sometimes the better games. I don't have the NFL Sunday ticket like I used to, so I'm not nearly as privileged. But sometimes I want to see a Lions game. Sometimes I want to see the Chargers and the Jaguars and the Colts even. And it kind of sucks that it's like the same teams every single Sunday. I mean, aren't the Bucks playing again? I mean, the Bucks are playing on Sunday, and they just played on Sunday, like Sunday night, the first week of the season. So it's like, the Bucks again. But yeah, that's like another rant for another time. Let's talk about the Saints and the Panthers. I do have my computer with me, so yeah. Now listen, I didn't get much of an opportunity to actually watch this game. So all that I'm going to be talking about is probably just going to be based off highlights. And so the reason I take notes on my computer is because, there are certain things that you can't really get off highlights. The highlights will give you the big plays, but they won't give you the little things that, add up to, I guess the final results. They miss certain things, so it's better to actually analyze a game by watching it through and through. Unfortunately, I didn't get the opportunity to, because certain things came up at that time, but that's one of the reasons I take my notes, is because, in case something that the highlights don't say, like, okay, well, maybe this drive contributed slightly to, our loss or our win. I'm just saying hypothetically, But either way, I'll do my best to give a recap, but this is just based off highlights that you could find on YouTube. Either way, let's get into it. So first quarter, Kamara would come back after missing last week, and he did something so rare and fumbled at about the 45, and it was picked up by Maine for the score. The Panthers would lead the Saints 7-0 in the first quarter. Second quarter, the Panthers would kick a 45-yard field goal early in the second quarter, making it a 10-0 game. Saints would allow yards after the catch with some terrible tackling or lack thereof. Pinheiro would kick a 48-yard field goal, making it a 13-0 game. Jameis would go long for Chris Olave, and he would make the catch with 48 seconds left in the half. A terrible play design was called on 3rd and 3, or a terrible throw. I'd say a terrible decision, because it's 3rd and 3. I think we had like 2 timeouts. It's like a minute and 20 seconds left, and Kamara is right down the middle, and everybody's split up this way, right? So it's Jameis Winston, and then Kamara right down the middle, and everybody's this way. And this is, I know it's 3rd and 3, but you don't have to go for the touchdown, right at that moment. And, had Winston seen Kamara, probably could have thrown to him, and there you go. That's a first and goal, or maybe Kamara gets the touchdown. I don't know, but either way, it didn't work out. We would set Lutz up to make a 30-yard attempt, and it was blocked, and the Panthers would lead the Saints 13-0 going into the half. So third quarter, Saints would establish a pretty good drive, marching down the field. On 3rd and 12, the Panthers defense would come up big and sack Jameis for a loss. Lutz would attempt a 48-yard field goal and miss it wide right, which is kind of rare for him as well. The Panthers would turn it over on downs on 4th and 4, and the Saints would not capitalize on it, as we mentioned last week. The Saints not capitalizing on certain things. The score would remain 13-0 with no team scoring in the quarter. 4th quarter. Saints would get Traquan Smith involved in the game. A few plays later, Ingram would redeem himself and score the first touchdown of the game for the Saints, making it a 7-13 game. The Panthers would then answer back on the play of the game, which was from Baker. It was a pass from Baker to, if I get this wrong, I'm so sorry, Laviska Chenault. I hope I said that right. Making a 67-yard touchdown. Panthers would try and go for 2, coming up short, making it 19-7 game with 12:06 left to play. Olave would also go over 100 yards in this game. The ball would be tipped at the line, causing for an interception by Derek Brown. I guess, it's tipped, then it's really anybody's ball at that point, so do those still technically count as interceptions? Either way, Panthers would go up 22-7 with a Binetto 34-yard field goal. Jameis would go long for Traquan Smith, who would make the catch, but end up pretty down. He would come down pretty badly, I should say. And the Saints had already lost Jarvis Landry and Michael Thomas at this point in the game. And then Marcus Callaway would make an unusual, underrated one-handed catch in the end zone, which is a pretty awesome touchdown, by the way. I wish that had been talked about more. But the game would be 14-22 with 2:22 left. Saints would not get the onside kick, but would get the ball back. A great punt by the Panthers defense would set the Saints up at their own 1-yard line. With 17 seconds left and no timeouts, the Saints would have one final shot at it. Winston would go long and the ball would be underthrown, resulting in an interception by J.C. Horn, who, little trivia fact if you didn't know, which I think most people probably know at this point, but if you don't, J.C. Horn is related to Joe Horn, former Saints wide receiver, which must be a very unique situation at the family dinner table, I guess. I myself have a family member who actually is a Panthers fan, who I did make a bet with, and I actually had to pay that bet, so yeah, I'm very happy about that, but, I always pay my bets, sometimes. Anyway, but it's not the same thing, but you get what I'm saying, Either way, Saints would lose to the Panthers, 14-22. Wow. So, who saw that coming? Now, again, I can't really make a full assessment because I didn't see this game in its entirety. I can only really draw a conclusion based on the 4th quarter, as it's the only quarter that I actually got to see. It didn't really appear that either team played all that well. Again, with that exception of that 67-yard touchdown by Laviska Chenault. I like that name, by the way. Just don't think I'm saying it right. But it didn't really seem like the Panthers did anything all that great offensively. Baker had less than 200 yards passing. DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson, who were big-time wide receivers for this team, were non-factors. McCaffrey did have over 100 yards, but no touchdowns. And that, again, is the second time this season that we've allowed a running back to get over 100 yards on us. But they settled for field goals, and yet still enough to beat us by 8. I'd say that they played pretty average, not to knock them, but they played average, and I guess we were pretty mediocre. So we were below them because we lost. So defensively for the Panthers is a completely different story. The Panthers played great. And I don't know what it is with the Saints trying to make these defenses look like top 5 defenses. I mean, they were a top 12 defense going into this game, but the Saints shot themselves pretty badly. I know it. Saints fans know it. They themselves know it. So, I try to ask myself what is wrong with the Saints, this year. I know that they won week 1, but they literally had to pull that win out of their behinds because, we actually stole it from the Falcons. We should be, as much as I don't want to say it, we should actually be 0-3 at this point. And so I couldn't figure it out. I've been sitting here trying to figure it out, like, what's wrong with the Saints? And finally it hit me. I think the Saints are losing because they're playing stupidly. There is really no other way to put this. We are fumbling. We are, Winston is throwing interceptions. We're not sacking. We're not getting takeaways. We have gotten a few fumbles here and there, but still, I think it starts, with Jameis Winston, and, he looks terrible out there. I'm not gonna lie, he looks like an injured horse out there. I don't mean that disrespectfully, but he looks terrible, and that's the fact that he's still it's stupid to put him out there when he has back fractures and, risk further injury for him. So that's stupid. As I mentioned, the turnovers, the penalties, just, we're not playing the way we should be. So, again, my apologies. And it just doesn't make sense because if you look at it, like, here's the thing, okay? Most analysts were saying that the Saints could be the surprise team, right, of the NFC, that they could even possibly win the division and, go to the playoffs, win a few games. Somebody even said that the Saints could actually make the Super Bowl, which I don't think that the Saints are, in a position or even close to being in the Super Bowl. But playoffs, that's a great, I'll take that. But, either way, we had much more fight last season than we have this season, if I'm being completely honest. And as I mentioned, we have a playoff caliber roster, but something's just not adding up. And it's a good thing that we drafted Olave because, and shout out to him, by the way, because he had over 100 yards in this game. Now, I know he didn't have a touchdown, but still, that game last week, I think he had quite a few yards. I think he had like 70. I'm not quite sure on that, but I think he did. But still, the chemistry between him and Winston was completely off. But regardless, it's that wasn't a very good game for him, and I'm sure he didn't feel great about that, especially the fumble. But I think that this game was a huge confidence booster for him. I would think it would be for anybody. And I'm so glad that we have him on the team. I really, truly am. Now, Winston did have 353 yards passing, but are we demanding too much from, Jameis Winston? Now, I know he's injured, but still, Jameis Winston was a question mark going into the season, I think. And are we expecting him to be like Breeze? Because Jameis has the arm strength. Not to knock on my former quarterback, I know what people say about him, but when Breeze had that arm strength and, wasn't dealing with, fractures, there's 11 fractures, right? Yeah, he was pretty great. So, but Breeze had the arm. Not so much with running, but if he needed to, he could. Winston, not so much. But Winston has an arm. That's 353 yards right there. But difference is that Breeze knew how to, command an offense. He knew how to make anyone a star. He knew the players' abilities and how to utilize them. And, Sean Payton was a really great coach as well and came up with these great game plans and, opposing defenses, they would double up on somebody, and somebody else would come in and, be the star of the game. That's just how the Saints rolled. Are we expecting Jameis Winston to be like Drew Brees? Because I know that most people have already given up on Jameis Winston. Now, I'm not there because, again, his injuries, it's kind of unfair, but I don't know. I'm starting to feel that way. Not yet, but that's just kind of how it's looking. Either way, as I mentioned, this game kind of wasn't really all that. And see, this is a game that I feel like we probably could have dominated, really, if we'd played smartly. But either way, shout out to the Carolina Panthers. They did their job, and I think that they played very smartly, and I think that's how they won this game. But yeah, and it's not good to win. I'm sorry, it's good to win. It's very good to win. It's not good to lose against division rivals. So, it's a good thing that the Bucks lost, but, really bad slip right there. But, with the Panthers and Falcons both winning, it drops us to third place in the NFC South. And it's kind of starting to feel like it did, when we went 7-9, I guess. It felt so much better last year because at least there was fight. There's no fight with this team. Either way, let's talk about the Vikings and the Saints in London real quickly. I like saying that, in London. It reminds me of that one scene in Friends when Joey finds out about Monica and Chandler in London, and he just screams it out really loudly. I used to be a huge fan of Friends when I was like a teenager, like 14, 15. I used to love watching Friends. But I feel like I've kind of grown out of it. Like if it's on, I'll have it on. But I'm just saying, when I think of London, I think of that one scene. But either way, we do play the Vikings, and this is kind of like another rivalry game, but this is an outside the division rivalry game. And let's say we don't like them, they don't like us. Probably hatred that grew for them in the 2009 NFC Championship, which, not to get into the controversy, but is there really anybody out there that really feels badly for Brett Favre anymore? I mean, he is a bad person. He did a very bad thing. I don't know if I want to label him that, but he did a really horrible thing. And I can't say I feel sorry for him anymore. But, either way, we have history with the Vikings, obviously, with the last two, the playoff matchups, the Stephon Diggs, Minnesota Miracle, which, for me, I'm not going to say it was, for me, I don't think it was our worst loss. Obviously, I don't think anything is going to replace the NFC Championship that was taken from us. But I'd say that this one was just more embarrassing. I find this loss, to be one of the more embarrassing ones. For me, it's top 3, but, they have the Minnesota Miracle, and then, which is probably one of the most replayed moments, or, like, everybody looks at that moment like, oh my gosh, it's such a crazy, crazy moment, but Vikings didn't do anything with that win, so it probably hurts a little less. And then they beat us the year after the robbery of the NFC Championship. And it's kind of like, as I mentioned, when you lose that way, to have to go back and do it again the next season to try to get to a Super Bowl, it's like that momentum and that energy is just sucked out of you, and it's like, meh, you just can't capitalize on it, and it gets to a point where it's like, no, man, I don't want to do this anymore. But either way, let's talk about the game real quick. Excuse me. Sorry, excuse me. Allergy season. Gotta love it. As I mentioned, must-win game for the Saints. I did watch 2 of the 3 games that the Vikings have played so far. I watched the first one versus the Packers and the one on Monday night, well, parts of it. You know, it's kind of hard for me to really do, like, kind of make an assessment, like, sort of comment on this, you know, like, the first game of the season versus the Packers. I'm not surprised that they won, is what I'm trying to say. It's just Packers in week 1 form, as we saw last year. The Eagles are much better, so the fact that they got embarrassed by the Eagles, it's not really a big, huge shocker. They did steal one from the Lions, actually. Poor Lions. Yeah, I think that the Vikings, though, despite their loss to the Eagles, I think they're a pretty good team. I think that they're a good team this year. I think that they have a really good defense. Offensively, they have some pretty great weapons. You know, they got Dalvin Cook. They've got, you know, their backup to Dalvin Cook. Matt's pretty good. Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen. I find Kirk Cousins to be kind of average. Honestly, I'd put him in the same category as I would Carson Wentz, but he can get the job done when he needs to. Clearly we know this. But anyway, excuse me. But anyway, with that being said, even though they have a pretty great defense, I think that we need to, well, again, we can win this game if we don't play stupidly. So, as I mentioned, yes, they have a good defense, but I think if we run the football a little bit more, get everyone involved in tight ends, as I've been saying these last several weeks, I think we have we have a good chance, right? I mean, we have to, right? And, you know, don't let Dalvin Cook, who I think is going to play, you know, get over 100 yards, you know. Do whatever you can to make sure that Thielen and Jefferson are non-factors, like you did with DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson. So, you know, and get an interception. And I really feel like one is coming. Knock on wood. I really do think that we might actually get at least one pick. And listen, we need to play really, really good in this game, because we're not going to go up there and score, 3 points? These people have been through a lot, you know. Let's give them a show at least, you know. Don't go up there and completely, you know, blink the bed. You know, just go up there, do your job, and give them, you know, what they came here for. After everything that they've been through, what a disgrace it would be if we put up 3, right? Anyway, I do have expectations because we need to win. Now, we are 1-2, but we're up to here. You know, we haven't completely buried ourselves. But if we lose this game, you might as well just bury us. But again, I think we can win this. At least, you know, we need to win this. There's no question about it. I know that the Vikings are 3-point favorites, but this is a must-win. There is no more excuses at this point. I don't know who's going to play quarterback, but, you know, I assume Jameis is going to start. That's my thinking, is that Jameis is going to start in this game. But whoever it is, I mean, if he's tanking, then DA needs to pull the plug. He needs to know when it's time to pull the plug and put in Taysom or Andy. So, you know, we'll see. And time will tell. I do not look forward, though, to waking up at 7:30. Oh boy, so that's what I don't look forward to. But either way, I think that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for watching. Once again, my name is HudaQueen94. I am also on Twitter under the same name. I live tweet games, and sometimes I ask dumb fantasy questions. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If not, that's cool. If you'd like to subscribe, I'd much appreciate it. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and Huda, go Saints! Alright, bye.